Our topic is the basic principles for persuading Generation X and the Millennials. This simple chart shows us the reasons why we have to be so concerned with this topic. The boomers, 80 million of them, have been our juror pool for years. But now Generation X, which is only 40 million, is still occupying a substantial portion of our jury pool, but the millennials are 75 million members of our jury pool. Most of the boomers by now, 80 million of them, they're old enough and experienced enough to know how to get out of jury service. So basically we're dealing with Generation X and the millennials, and it's extremely important to know how to communicate with them because it's very different from communicating with the boomers. And a lot of the things that we've learned early in our practices no longer apply to this brand new generation of millennials. So let's talk about basic principles, first of all, of communications. We remember that in delivery of the message, our verbal communication is only 8% of the delivery of the message. It's not to say verbal communication is not important, because it's very important. The words that we choose to use in the construction of our message, the words that we deliver in our message are very, very important. And we're going to talk later about how we choose our words and how different words work for different generations. But words are only 8% of the delivery of the message. Vocal communication is 37% of the delivery of the message. Vocal communication is the sound, quality, tone, timbre of the voice. It's the use of the pause. It's the ability to use your voice as an instrument and, if you will, as a weapon in gathering, gaining, holding attention of the jury. And one of the major things that makes the vocal part 37% of the delivery of the message is that to a large extent the vocal carries our sincerity. You have to sound as if you believe the message you're delivering. If you don't believe the message, if you don't believe in your client's case, then I respectfully suggest that you get out of the way and let somebody try the case who does believe in it. Because 12 jurors, 12 of our fine citizens off the streets, will pick up through vocal and through nonverbal, particularly, communication as being insincere. And if you're insincere, you're dead in the water, and so is your client's case. But now let's look at a very important thing. This is especially true when it comes to dealing with millennials, and that is that 55% of the message delivery, the communication, is nonverbal communication. So it's important now, what we've learned about communication methods is that we maintain synthesis and consistency between those three categories: vocal, verbal, and nonverbal communication. In other words, your verbal communication, your nonverbal communication, and your vocal communication all have to be delivering the same message in the same way. If there's inconsistency in your message, if there's no synthesis, then the nonverbal communication will prevail. For example, if you are delivering the message to the jury that this is my good friend John that I have the privilege of representing, and then all through your voir dire and through opening, especially voir dire, when you're introducing John to the jury, you're talking about your friend John and what a privilege you are to represent John and tell John's story. But then during the break, all through the trial, John's sitting there by himself during the breaks, he's sitting by himself at lunch, and you're ignoring John completely. Your nonverbal communication is sending the message to the jury that John is not really your friend. John is just what they believe anyway, if they're tort reformers. He's just an instrument for you to make money. You're just another greedy trial lawyer who's in there trying to sell them a bill of goods. So that's an easy message for them to receive because they're preconditioned to receive it. If you say that this is my client whom I'm privileged to represent, you have to say it, you have to mean it, and you have to convey it vocally, verbally, and non-verbally, because what happens is this. If you are delivering an inconsistent message, and you're saying one thing and you're delivering a vocal and nonverbal message, the same message in different way, and it's inconsistent, the nonverbal will prevail. So if the nonverbal prevails, that means that the verbal communication is being rejected. In other words, your message is being rejected by them as insincere or as just untruthful and untrustworthy. So that can be absolutely devastating to you and to your client's claim, because trustworthiness is what this is all about. We have to maintain our trustworthiness with the jury if we're going to be successful in delivering our client's message. In data processing, we all process information in three ways. We process information auditorily, the sound. We process information visually with sight. And we process information kinesthetically. Kinesthetic processing of the message is it's that gut feeling. This is when the jury goes into the jury room and the foreman of the jury says, you know, I heard the lawyer's message and he presented it very well, but something about that plaintiff's case just doesn't feel right to me. Well, that's something that doesn't feel right as often as not. They can't quite put their finger on it. As often as not, that's a kinesthetic sensation that arises out of what they have seen non-verbally. They know what they heard. They know how they heard it, but they just didn't quite buy it. That's because they were seeing nonverbal communication that was inconsistent with it. And the kinesthetic feel that they got from it, the gut level feel was that this is an untruthful message. When you do that, it just tears at your trustworthiness. To tell you how important it is for jurors to trust lawyers, there was a big survey done on part of a much larger debriefing of actual jurors in a 1,500-page survey, 1,500 question survey. And one of the questions was whether they liked the lawyer and why they liked the lawyer, if they did. And what came out of that was there are three things that make jurors like lawyers. Number one is dynamism. Dynamism is just merely keeping them awake, keeping them interested, keeping them engaged, keeping them involved, and being interactive with them, making them feel like that they're not just a spectator, they're not sitting in a movie theater watching all this unfold on a screen, they're actually actively involved in it. They have to use their own brains to do more than just listen to what you're saying. They have to engage, they have to calculate, they have to make their own decisions about things based upon what you're presenting to them in an interactive fashion, so that they feel that the decision that they're making is theirs. They feel that the story of the case that they're developing is theirs, because there are going to be three stories in the case. There's going to be the plaintiff's story, there's going to be the defendant's story, and then there's going to be each individual juror's story, their understanding, their belief about what this case is about. The plaintiff's story is the one you're conveying. The defense story is the one, obviously, that is being used as an alternate choice, or first of all to tear down the plaintiff's story, but secondly to present their own story about what happened. The juror's story is the story that when they go home at night and the spouse says, "What happened in court today?" They say, "Well, this case is all about," and what they say after that is their current version of the story, what this case is about. So the idea is that if you can get them engaged interactively so that your story becomes their story, that's how you lead to a just result for your client in a case, and you do that through dynamic presentation. Dynamism is the opposite of boredom. Boredom is what they most frequently get. Boring is the most frequently used word to describe jury service. The second thing is efficiency. They don't want their time wasted. Now, this applies as much to judges as it does to juries, obviously. They really resent it when you come in and waste their time. They don't like unnecessary objections that just seem to be for the purpose of harassing the other side, or they don't like unnecessary objections that just seem to waste their time and the court's time when everybody in the courtroom knows what's going on. So you want to be efficient. Efficiency, you need to have your predicates ready. Know what your predicates are. Don't be stumbling around trying to remember what a predicate for a piece of evidence is. Do things efficiently. And you want to create an anchor. And the anchor is this, that when the judge calls your name, when the judge says, in my case, all right, Mr. Nations, you may proceed. When they hear my name, I want them to have an anchor that is, okay, something is about to happen that I need to listen to. That needs to be the anchor you create with your efficiency. And the way you create that anchor is that when your name is called, make something happen. Do something. Do something that engages the jury. Have something to offer. And it doesn't happen when you just say, now, let me understand, did you just tell the jury this, and this? Yeah, that's what I told the jury. Well, that's what the jury just heard too. Be efficient. Be professional. And be interactive with the jury by everything you do should be enhancing your story or tearing down the story of the other side and conveying the very strong message to the jury that your story should be their story. The next thing is trustworthiness, which I've talked about 3 times now, because liking lawyers, predicated on dynamism and efficiency, I think is most strongly predicated on trustworthiness. Because I think if you lose trustworthiness, you've basically lost the case. If they don't buy your story is the client's case. If they don't buy your story, they don't buy your client's case. I've seen cases won by lawyers who were not dynamic, who were not keeping the jury awake particularly because maybe their opponent is putting them to sleep even worse. I've seen cases won by lawyers who stumble through and are not so efficient. But it's hard to imagine a case being won by a lawyer who is just totally untrustworthy, who's lost the trustworthiness of the jury, unless their client just has complete trustworthiness and they have a strong case that the jury just simply wants to bring in a verdict for that particular client of that particular lawyer. So dynamism, efficiency, and trustworthiness.